The most dangerous number in politics is not a missile count. It is a number you are not allowed to see. Right now, U.S. military operations in the Caribbean and near Venezuela are underway. Boats destroyed, more than 100 people killed, forces deployed since August, and yet Congress is being told something astonishing, that it isn't costing anything. Representative Adam Smith says Democratic estimates put the cost near $800 million. Add a separate operation aimed at arresting Nicolas Maduro. That pushes the total toward $1 billion. But the Pentagon refuses to confirm the number, refuses to deny it clearly, refuses to explain it plainly. If you are paying attention, this should stop you cold. Because when military power moves without financial transparency, democracy does not fail loudly. It erodes quietly. If this question matters to you, stay with me. Because what begins as a budget dispute rarely ends as one. And to understand why, we need to slow down and define the real problem first. At first glance, this looks like a technical fight, a disagreement over spreadsheets, a routine clash between lawmakers and the Pentagon. But that framing is dangerously incomplete. This is not about whether the cost is $800 million or $1 billion. It is about who gets to know the cost at all. Congress has a constitutional role: oversight, authorization, control of the purse. And yet, according to senior Democrats, repeated requests for basic financial clarity were met with dismissal. Not delay, dismissal. The message was blunt. Operations are happening, assets are deployed, people are dying, but the bill is undefined. Adam Smith did the math his own way. So did other Democrats. Their estimate landed near $800 million. This was the moment the issue changed character, from policy disagreement to institutional alarm. Because if lethal force can be deployed without a clear accounting, then oversight becomes ceremonial. If this concerns you, it should. Because this is not about ideology, it is about control. And this crisis was only the surface. Beneath it lies a deeper system, one designed to obscure responsibility itself. This story did not begin in the Caribbean, and it did not begin with Venezuela. It began with a shift in how modern military power is exercised. Over time, operations became faster, more flexible, less formally declared. Deployments no longer required massive troop movements. They required ships offshore, aircraft in rotation, specialized forces on standby. That evolution changed the economics of war. Costs became diffuse, spread across existing budgets, hidden inside readiness, logistics, and ongoing posture. So when forces moved near Venezuela in August, it did not look like a new war. It looked like business as usual. But business as usual has a price. The administration leaned on that ambiguity. If troops were already funded, if equipment was already deployed, then on paper, nothing new was being spent. This is how modern interventions avoid debate, not through secrecy alone, but through normalization. And once normalized, they become politically invisible until something breaks. And in this case, what broke first was trust. Then came the first rupture. Not a declaration, not a speech, but violence. Small boats in the Caribbean, targeted, destroyed, more than 100 people killed. Suddenly what had been abstract became real. Lives lost, images circulating, questions multiplying, and Congress asked the most basic one: how much is this costing? The answer never came. Instead, lawmakers were told the operations were essentially free. No new spending, no meaningful bill. That claim strained credulity. Ships burned fuel, aircraft require maintenance. Personnel rotations are not imaginary. Adam Smith did the math his own way. So did other Democrats. Their estimate landed near $800 million. This was the moment the issue changed character, from policy disagreement to institutional alarm. Because if lethal force can be deployed without a clear accounting, then oversight becomes ceremonial. If this concerns you, it should, because this is not about ideology, it is about control. And this crisis was only the surface. Beneath it lies a deeper system, one designed to obscure responsibility itself. What makes this possible is not a single decision. It is a system where military operations are sliced into categories: presence, posture, deterrence, words that sound passive, defensive, almost inert. In that system, costs do not appear as line items. They dissolve into existing accounts, training budgets, maintenance cycles, forward deployment funds. So when Congress asks for a price tag, the answer becomes semantic. Nothing new was authorized, nothing new was requested, therefore nothing new was spent. This is the logic being deployed. But logic is not the same as truth, because reality does not care how accountants label it. Ships operating off Venezuela still consume resources. Operations aimed at Nicolas Maduro still require planning, intelligence, and force. One Democratic lawmaker put that operation alone at $500 million. Added together, and you approach a number no one wants to own. This is how accountability erodes, not through lies alone, but through fragmentation. And when responsibility is everywhere, it is nowhere. The next crisis emerges when that abstraction collides with people. Pressure always builds in silence, until it doesn't. The second rupture was not kinetic, it was institutional. Senator Jack Reed made the accusation explicit that the administration was breaking the law, not miscommunicating, not misunderstanding, but failing to provide information legally required by Congress. That is a serious charge, because when oversight collapses, budgets stop being numbers. They become signals of power. The Pentagon pushed back flatly. Its press secretary said the claim was false. That data had been shared across more than 24 engagements. Two realities now existed at once. Lawmakers saying they were kept in the dark, the Defense Department saying the lights were on. This is the danger zone of governance, where no referee exists, and the public cannot see the field. In that fog, confidence erodes quickly, not just in numbers, but in institutions themselves. And once trust breaks at that level, the consequences do not stay in Washington. They move outward, toward people who never voted on these decisions, toward you. Now bring this down to ground level, away from committees, away from press secretaries. Put yourself in this picture. You are a taxpayer. You are told the country cannot afford certain things. Healthcare debates stall. Infrastructure waits. Debt dominates headlines. And yet nearly $1 billion may be moving through the military system without a clear explanation. You are asked to trust that it costs nothing, that ships, planes, personnel, intelligence somehow operate on air. This is where abstraction becomes personal, because when money is unaccounted for, you lose the ability to judge priorities. You cannot consent to what you cannot see. This is not about being for or against intervention. It is about being included at all. Democracy is not just voting, it is visibility, and when visibility disappears, so does agency. If this resonates with you, if you feel that quiet unease, pay attention, because what happens next does not stay confined to one region. It ripples outward, across borders, across markets, across the global system itself. And that is where we go next. What happens off the coast of Venezuela does not stay there. Military deployments send signals to allies, to rivals, to markets watching quietly. When the United States applies pressure without transparency, others notice the method, not just the message. Regional actors recalibrate. They ask how far power can move without explanation, without debate, without a price tag. Then comes the oil question. President Donald Trump argues that Venezuela's oil will pay for these operations, that control of energy can offset military cost. But industry experts see a different reality. They say Venezuela's oil system is broken. that it would take $60 billion and years of repair before real revenue flows. That gap matters because when assumptions replace facts, strategy becomes speculation. Markets react to uncertainty. Executives hesitate. Confidence fractures. Even Exxon's CEO called Venezuela uninvestable. The response was not reassurance. It was a threat. And that moment revealed something deeper. Power exercised without clarity creates instability beyond borders. Not just geopolitical, economic, systemic. And once instability spreads, the future stops being linear. It branches. And from here, three paths emerge. From this point forward, the system can move in only a few directions. The first path is restraint. Transparency is restored. Costs are disclosed. Congress reasserts oversight. Operations continue, perhaps, but within visible limits. Power slows down when it is watched. That is the best case outcome. The second path is drift. No clear answers arrive. The issue fades from headlines. Operations normalize. Spending becomes background noise, neither approved nor challenged. This is how democracies weaken, not through collapse, but through fatigue. Then there is the third path, escalation without accountability. Pressure increases, costs rise, assumptions harden into policy, oil is promised before it exists, force is justified before it is measured. In that scenario, the bill always arrives late, and it is always larger than expected. History is unambiguous on this point. Systems that confuse power with exemption eventually face correction. The only question is timing, because the future is not decided by intentions. It is decided by structures, and the structure on display here is under stress. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Democracy does not disappear overnight. It dims. First, costs become unclear. Then accountability becomes optional. Then power stops explaining itself. What you are watching here is not a foreign policy debate. It is a stress test, a test of whether military force can move without numbers, without consent, without consequence. Nearly $1 billion may already be committed. More may follow, and no one can say on the record what the ceiling is. That should matter to you, because once a system learns that it does not need to explain itself, it rarely relearns the habit. This is not about Venezuela's oil, or Donald Trump, or one Pentagon briefing. It is about whether transparency is a requirement or a courtesy. And history is clear. Systems that abandon visibility eventually abandon restraint. If you want to understand where power is moving next, and how quietly it can move, stay with this conversation, share it, question it, and don't let the most important numbers remain invisible.